and welcome to this edition of the 941 Sports Zone, brought to you by Vibrant Aspect Media. We're here at Douglas Jeep, as usual, and we thank Greg Douglas and all his staff for having us here each and every week for the 941 Sports Zone podcast. Tonight, my special guest, Mr. Larry Shannon, coach, administrator, all kinds of stuff now, dad, husband, all kinds of roles for Larry. So we're going to pick Larry's brain a little bit about the upcoming high school football playoffs. I would say that you might be the one guy I think is probably the expert of knowing how this thing kind of worked itself out. Not that you probably want to explain it, but we can at least figure out a little bit of what it was. So yeah, because it is a little complicated, and we even talked about some things that have happened just before the show started about some teams that got they're raw into the deal on some stuff with this playoff format. So we'll talk a little bit about our brackets here with Venice High School and a lot of the other teams in the area and are in our region as well. We'll talk about all that stuff and some other things as well. Before we do that, though, I'm going to go ahead and review a little bit we did last week with Trey Burton. We had Trey on here to kind of talk a little bit about Florida Gator football. Too often, a lot of times with when Trey is doing stuff with us, he's kind of a multifaceted guy. Right. You can ask him questions about NIL. You can ask him questions about local sports, but the Gator angle is something that obviously is true to his heart. We talked a little bit about how the team was on the edge a little bit, and they're kind of figuring some things out. And lo and behold, you get a game that happens on Saturday with Florida where they ended up sort of muffing a potential win, in that game, and it didn't quite go their way. And sort of now where are they headed now with three really tough games coming up, and we'll talk about that as well as we get into our to the show. And then we also talked about this, and Larry, I'll tack to you on this one. We talked about artificial turf. Obviously, at the pro level, it's prevalent,
right?
And Trey is not a fan, and I'll ask you that same question. Are you a fan of it from the player perspective, understanding that it is a multi-purpose field that does benefit other aspects of the game? But I'll leave it to you to answer that question.
Not a fan. It's just, I think it's just, obviously it looks nice and it's obviously convenient, but I think that the game deserves to be played on natural grass. I think it's just a different game on turf. Yeah. You don't cut the same. You obviously there's a lot more risk involved with injuries as well. That's been kind of some data's out there, and this with my experience and with coaching, on it and playing on it, right. It's just the things that it does to your body is just it's not what grass does.
So yeah, he said there were veterans in the NFL who would not practice on it or getting ready because they said it was too much for their body. They wouldn't be able to play on Sunday if they were to practice on it. So those indoor facilities that everybody raves about, they're not the most popular places to be for some of those veterans because they're getting beat up by it.
Right. I think an indoor facility is convenient, but I think that a coach will definitely be out on grass, if they have the opportunity to. And like you say, there's people that have indoors, and it's just more a weather thing because if they can get out on grass and keep the players their bodies off of the turf as much as they can, they try to do that.
Monetarily, the ownerships and with some of these stadiums are like, hey, I'll use MetLife Stadium in New Jersey as the example. 2 pro teams playing there. You've got multiple concerts. You name what's going on there. And they really are like, hey, this functionally, this works better for us. But I'll say this to you, using Premier League or high level European soccer as an example, there are players that are, big time players that's in their contract. They will never play on artificial turf. They're not going to do it. And the grass fields that they have to manage in, I would say, in sometimes relatively difficult conditions are usually pristine.
Right.
So the NFL makes a lot of money.
Right.
Not just the owner, but just talking the NFL in general. If the NFL said, hey, everybody has to have grass, that's the rule, I'm sure they probably could figure out a way at that level to get the grass right.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at some of the, cold weather teams that still have grass, the Green Bays and the Chicagos, and if they can have grass in the NFL, I think anybody can have grass.
Right.
Right. Obviously, it's a little different at the college and high school level. At Venice High School, we've been blessed to have one of the best grass fields there are in the country.
Yeah.
I mean, for a high school venue.
Right.
And we have to get rid of that,
right.
and obviously, there's some schools that are not, as fortunate as we have been to keep a good surface, and they, welcome the turf. And
Right.
where we, are kind of on the fence about why would we give up this beautiful surface, but at the pro level, I always say this, there's no excuse for any pro team not to have natural grass. If those teams can do it and keep it a great surface, all throughout the cold weather months, and anybody could be able to do it because they have the unlimited resources and the money.
Right. Indoor stadiums as well. A lot of the stadiums nowadays are retractable roof, but I know that one of the first things I saw was out in Arizona where they pull the grass out. I mean, the whole field is on rollers. It goes out.
Crazy.
They water it. They keep it out there and they roll it in before the game. Now, the argument to that was what happened in the Super Bowl when the field was outside getting ready and it got cold or whatever, and they watered it, brought it back in, and I guess it got like dewy and a little slippery. That's not the grass's fault. Or that was a miscalculation on somebody who was a groundskeeper miscalculation, and it may have been the fact that the regular groundskeeper may not have been taking care of it because in the Super Bowl it shows up,
they bring their own guy in, right?
And so he might have not known that. But anyway, like I said, I don't have the experience to play on it like you have and like Trey has. But everybody that has had the experience of playing on it multiple times say, yeah, this is not where I want to be. I'd rather be on some grass.
Yeah, I had the luxury of playing on the original AstroTurf where you were basketball shoes, right? The before the field turf, the one where it wasn't the little black pebbles where you could wear cleats. You had to wear a tennis shoe.
It's what you was having your lanai.
Yeah, outdoor carpet.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's a whole nother story on that stuff, obviously.
And the seams are messed up. There's all kinds of stuff. So yeah, for sure. So yeah, I think if I had 10 ex-NFL players sit in that chair, I think all 10 would probably give me the same reasons. So with that was basically our conversation with Trey, and we always thank Trey. And for those of you who watch us live stream the Venice High School football games, Trey will be my color analyst this week. And I'll give you some information about that a little later on. But Trey will be my analyst this week for the game with Liquid Ranch. With that, we're talking a little high school tonight, Larry. And obviously you've been at Venice High School for a long time now. And we've been through different versions of the playoff formats and whatnot. This playoff format, which was sort of brought to fruition last year, where they kind of chopped the classifications up into a suburban metro championship kind of level. Instead of having 8 classifications, there's 2 4s classifications,
right?
All the different stuff. But it is a very complicated, very sort of layered point system that's put in place to find out where you're seated outside of if you win a district you're in, but the other part of it in the region itself is gone that way. Can you put it into a short version, or is that possible?
We've had a couple of different versions of this this rating that we're getting.
Sure.
It used to be you could calculate based on who you played, and they've always been trying to instill a strength of schedule into the formula.
Sure.
And so as time has went on over the last few years, everybody was realizing that Max Preps was already doing a lot of this, on their own. And so the state kind of inherited Max Preps expertise into what they were already doing as far as kind of ranking teams, figuring out, giving them credit for who they played, with the strength of schedule aspect. Also, it goes a long ways. You're getting a point, a rating off of 3 different factors. You're getting off your winning percentage, which is always probably could come down to the most important thing. You got to win to get in.
Sure.
And but now it's a little tricky because you have to make sure that you are playing tougher opponents because it's a competitive environment to get the seed that you want.
Right. And I know that's one of the reasons why Coach Peacock with scheduling isn't afraid to throw some, big time.
You have to be smart about it. There has to be a kind of a balance there where you're able to, you can't really predict that because you don't know how everybody's going to be, but you want to schedule people that are going to be, the better teams in the area or the state. And because obviously it's going to make your team better, but it's also going to give you that that advantage into the ranking. When it's calculated.
Yep. And so looking at our the region in particular that Venice is in, which is the 4S championship, or in the fourth region 4, Venice will take on Lakewood Ranch, which came out yesterday at 10 a.m. at Powell Davis Stadium, 7:30. And so I think it shook out that we at the very end you didn't know if it was going to be Lakewood Ranch or Charlotte, and then of course those last games they make a difference in the points. Points level, and then Charlotte and Lakewood Ranch. I think they flip-flopped. Yeah. So you get that game, and then obviously from there, you've got the 4-5 matchup, which is Gulf Coast and Immokalee, which then that winner would then depending on things would pay the 1-8 winner, and then you go to the other side. You have Manatee and Charlotte. And then Riverview and Palmetto. So so that would be the region that Venice falls into. And again, it's got a very local flavor to it. Outside of the 2 schools that are down in the Collier County area, they're all teams that we've played or seen and been in districts with over the years.
Right.
So you the familiarity. Prospectively, do you like that idea of having it be like there's a lot more local teams, or would you wish that we see the same team twice? Is that something that comes into?
No, I think definitely like it the other way when you just had 8 classes and your region was larger, and that way the opportunity to have rematch was a lot less.
Right.
I'm looking here, and Riverview and Palmetto have already played. Manatee, Charlotte's already played. And they're in the first round, game, they're having rematches,
right?
I think if you could look at that region and say, oh, you may have 1 or 2 rematches, but we're gonna end up having 4 or 5 when it's all said and done. So the region's a lot smaller, and then when you get a weak region, as far as there's not a lot of we have 2 teams in our region that have losing records.
Right.
So that's what I mean by weak. So that is, that just, I don't get the point sometimes to know that, we're reducing these regions down, and then now, so the amount of the competitive balance, isn't there as far as, having playoff teams,
First round games in a lot of cases aren't really, what
not what it used to be. Right. Yeah.
And like I said, and I look at it again as well, that in the back in the day, you always sort of bemoan the fact you had to play somebody a second time, but normally that was a region final, and it was a tough get back to the other person. Now it seems like the region is basically a redo of what the regular season was in some way.
with the way it's structured now, the opportunity for rematches is high.
Yeah. And I looked at all the regions, and you see the teams like you got the Buchholz region. I'm sure that they've seen a bunch of the teams that are in their region as well. We used to talk about Niceville and Nice, Bartram Trail, Navarre, different teams like that. I'm not saying they've all seen it, but they probably know each other very, very well. But in the past, they might have got a team out of off the East Coast or whatever it may have been, because you got the 8A classification or the 7A classification would have been much broader with maybe larger districts in some cases, and then they would bring into the fact those other teams could have made it.
Yeah.
So it's definitely different.
You go back to 2021, the last time we were in the old way of doing the classifications. Our first round game was Plant City,
Mm-hmm.
Second round was Riverview. So that was a rematch, but third round was a team from Orlando, and so, it just was a different approach to it, a different matchups, and it was more spread out, obviously across the state, and so you were going to get less rematches.
Yeah, we've actually had games where we played Miami Columbus in a semifinal.
Mm-hmm.
We've played all different teams, how things. They read size you every 2 years or whatever you fall into. So you were playing a lot of different schools throughout the playoff run. You didn't. They said you saw Riverview once, or maybe you saw Manatee other years, or whatever it may have been. But now you're seeing it's not just Manatee or Charlotte or Riverview, one team. You have the potential on the one side. You're going to see a local team in the regional final. If that's where you get to, you're going to see a team that you are familiar with in the regional final. And depending on who it is, sometimes it can be, they know you.
Right.
You know them. You know, it gets to be one of those kind of situations.
It's just tough when you have to play a team twice, you know, and it's you put all the work in for the first game and then you got to, do it all over again. So sometimes it's hard to beat a team twice. You know? It's hard to play a team twice. It's hard to prepare for a team twice. In high school, and obviously but we're satisfied with where we're at, and we're going to use this time for us to take them one at a time, and kind of hopefully go on a run that we're capable of going on.
The one thing we talked about a little too the other night, we were talking how you don't reseed at any point in time. So if you are the third best team or the fourth best team or whatever in 4S, that's where if you stay there,
right?
Okay, you don't, and you play. If you're the fourth team, you play the first best team. The only way you can move up in a seed is if somebody loses ahead of you. And I think I don't mind that concept because it's reward to what you did in a regular season, as opposed to like, the luck of the draw. You get a coin flip. Like back in the day, I didn't like the fact when they would say, you alternate who gets home field.
Right. I didn't like that either.
It's like that's just the luck of the draw kind of scenario. And then how much that means in those games is it's huge having a home field in the semifinal game.
It's different if you can guarantee you're going to be there every time. But let's say you finally get there and you're the better team, but then you have to travel. So that was definitely an old school rule that we were glad to see go away.
Yeah, that was almost like it was a little lazy.
Yeah.
Like, okay, this time you get it. The next time you get it. It's kind of how you look at it. I would prefer to say on your merit, whatever that may be, and then you can go out and play well, get a good schedule, and get the right ranking or point standing or whatever, and deserve that game at home after that.
Correct.
So that's good to go. So 4S is going to be very popular in this area. Obviously, we'll keep track of what's going on, and hopefully everybody gets some big crowds at their opening games, because you want those playoff games mean something, and the community needs to rally around every home team or any of their teams. I hope that Lakewood Ranch packs the other side on Friday night, and I'm sure that the folks at Riverview and folks at Manatee are hoping for a big crowd from their local rivals as well. So if you get a chance to go out there, this is where it gets real fun now, guys. You go out there and you can enjoy a lot of really good football for sure. With that, we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back and talk a little bit more about the other teams in the area that have made some hay getting into the playoffs. Just kind of glance over that, and then we'll talk a little bit about what's going around the state with college football for a little bit as well. Because one team's doing really well, the rest of them are sort of like I don't know. It's very inconsistent. Let's just put it to you that way. With that, we'll take a break. Come back here at Douglas Jeep for the 941 Sports Zone.
Douglas Jeep Chrysler Dodge Ram is excited to announce Black Friday savings all month long during the Black Friday sales event. Get a great deal on the new Ram 1500 Bighorn Crew Cab from only $369 per month. Or drive a new Jeep Renegade Latitude from only $319 per month. Drive a new Jeep Grand Cherokee from only $399 per month. Get Black Friday savings all month long during the Black Friday sales event going on now at Douglas Jeep Chrysler Dodge Ram in Venice. Who has Black Friday savings all month long? Douglas does!
And welcome back to the 941 Sports Zone here with Coach Larry Shannon. And I almost forgot to mention, we have at the end our What's Bugging Me section. So if anything is bugging you in the sports world, in life, I mean, it's funny, we all sort of we're kind of running out of a few things, and Coach Peacock was, he's regular person with me during the off season, and he's like, can I talk about how the grocery store bugs me? And I'm like, yeah, whatever's bothering you. So whatever's bothering you, if you want to get a little off your chest, we'll have an opportunity to do that in a little bit. And that's Truly Nolan, who's our sponsor. We do appreciate them for sponsoring our What's Bugging Me segment. So, Coach, we talked about the 4S, Region 4 for us. 3S, there's two teams locally that are involved, Port Charlotte and Parish Community. They've played each other, I know this year, and I know Port Charlotte, that was late in the season. Port Charlotte kind of put it to them on that game. And Port Charlotte, looking at their schedule beginning of the year, they played a pretty formidable schedule. Them being a 6 seed, I know they didn't win the district, but or maybe they did. They did win the district, right? They did win it. But they being a 6 seed, I think it's a little bit because they lost some games that, that they had a rough schedule. They played some teams.
Yeah, it's kind of, when I first saw that, they're a district champion. They're 8-2, and they're a 6 seed. And I'm like, whoa,
Yeah.
that's a tough region. There's some good quality teams in there. You look at Naples, who's always a powerhouse,
And they're a 2.
and they're a 2. And you got Fort Myers and Dunbar. Dunbar last year definitely were a 4, I think, regional champions.
They were.
Or a semifinal team, I want to believe.
Yeah.
So, and I think they're a little down this year because I think they play a tough schedule because they're a 4 seed. So that's a very competitive region. That's what it's supposed to look like. I mean, you get
right.
That's what you're gunning for if you're if you're putting together playoffs is a region where 8-2 district championship team is a 6 seed. That should be some really good football.
Absolutely right. Like I said, I saw that. I was like, okay, and again, I think everybody is going to be pretty battle tested and ready to go. But again, they haven't seen each other either, so it's a pretty interesting little area right there. Going to be interested to see how Port Charlotte fares and if they can get to the finals or something along those lines. I know that Coach Ingman has been doing a few things down there, and he's tried to sort of, again, I think on purpose he played a pretty tough schedule to Bishop Verot, which is one of the top teams, and so
they played Manatee also.
Right. They didn't shy away from people in the region as well. So 3S is something to watch out for. We'll keep an eye on that. 2S I put on there for a little bit for you.
Yeah.
So the hometown team. Looking like they're doing well this year.
They're doing really well. Last year we were talking about Bradford High, my school, my alumni, proud alumni here. But they 10-0, second in the whole class as far as their ranking. They're in there with Cocoa. So, and last year they had a close loss to Cocoa in the semifinals. And Cocoa went on to win the state championship.
Right.
So
right.
This year, if they can keep winning, maybe they see Cocoa in the state championship game. So that's interesting. We also have a mutual friend, Keystone Heights.
Yes, that's another one there.
Yeah, that's Reynolds. Yeah, but no, that's exciting for that part of the state. There's some really good small high schools that play really good football, and they passionate fans. I mean, you go to the home games in those little small communities like that.
The whole town's there.
The whole town's there. The town shuts down, on game day, and it's just a pretty special environment. So that would be interesting to see how the Tornadoes of Bradford County do.
I said Bradford, and we mentioned Keystone, but Bishop Verot is a team that's been around the area. They got a real good quarterback.
Oh, yeah.
They've done some stuff, and of course Cocoa, who we played. So you've got in and around the top some really good stuff. And of course on the Region 4 side of 2S, you've got Lemon Bay, district champion at the 3 seed, and Booker, the runner-up at the 7 seed. We've talked to Coach Littles, and he had a lot of high expectations this year. Maybe if he was here, probably say he didn't really hit the home run he was hoping to hit. But they played a lot of good teams, and Fort Meade is a good team. But that's an interesting matchup at that 2-7 that I think will be a really, really interesting deal. Where you might see a Lemon Bay Booker rematch, which Lemon Bay went ahead and did beat them the last time they played.
Absolutely.
So that would be a pretty interesting matchup. And then of course, with Bishop Verot being the top in that situation, man, I don't know if they've played everybody, but there's some teams that they're gonna. Whoever the semifinal is, that's gonna be one hell of a semifinal.
Right.
From the 2S the deal, I know. There's other schools in 2S that are coming from the other coast that are going to be formidable.
Very, very good football right there.
Yeah.
And that whole class. And so that would be interesting to see. It's fun to keep up with that stuff to see, the matchups and the scores after the games. And
absolutely.
Right.
And excited. And Bradford will have home games obviously through the region. And I would pretty interesting if Coach Reynolds could manage to get his way up to that regional final and see if he could get his way up to face Bradford.
Well, they already played together.
They did?
They played in the regular season. So I don't
know
know if he wants that.
Didn't go that well. So, all right. I'll give you a break. And then also the other team in the playoffs locally is Cardinal Mooney. I don't know much about the 1S. Some of the schools that are in 1S it's been weird because 1S was sort of the 2B or 2A, whatever you want to call back in the day. And a lot of the schools, they sort of they don't venture into the playing other schools like
Right.
the higher level schools. They sort of play amongst themselves. A lot of the Christian schools and smaller schools and whatnot. And but Mooney's been, I mean, coming out of the gate. I mean, they've looked athletic. Just a different version of the Cardinal Mooney, maybe even 5 years ago. I don't know if you've seen anything on that.
Yeah,
they've
they got a really good team. Saw a few games on film. They had lost their quarterback for a little while.
Right.
Michael Valentino,
An ex-Venice player.
Yeah, and so he's back and seems to be healthy. I think they're rolling. They're playing really good football. They have a really talented bunch. So
I know they got the one wide receiver / corner that's going to Florida. Is it Teddy? I can't remember his last name.
Foster, I believe.
Yeah. Yep. So they got some guys, and so and it's always been, over the years, there's always been the idea that Cardinal Mooney was sort of a sleeping giant in some ways, because they have those options. Like, I'm not not to bring up bad names, but like what a St. Thomas can do. You know what I mean?
Right.
They have that kind of abilities to do that, and to see that they're getting some athletes over there, and they're not shying away from local competition either. They've played a lot of teams that were a little higher in ranking, and they've done some of that. So
they play Booker, they play Riverview. So they definitely have.
They played Sarasota too, I think. Did they not? Or
I think
they might have played them.
I can't
as well.
remember, but they've actually they're a well coached team. They're a good looking team. For if you look at a 1S private school, they're impressive. So
Yeah.
I think they'll hopefully have a chance to make some noise. They got a good group to do it. So
I made a prediction way back in the day when Coach Peacock was sitting here that I thought there would be 3 regional champions from our area. So it's still possible.
yeah.
Don't know if it'll happen, but it's still possible. So we'll see how that plays out. But again, all the local teams, I'll say it one more time, go out and support all those teams. They love it when they get. It's a big crowd, and it is exciting. Like you said, you talked about your experience up at Bradford, but any of these area schools. I mean, when you pack the crowd out, man, the kids know it. The kids love that stuff,
Right.
and they feel
different
that
energy in the air.
Different energy.
Yeah, and it's just I just go back to last 5 or 6 years just here locally at our, all the home playoff games that we have when you come out for pregame or when you come out for the kickoff, it's just the excitement's in the air. The weather's changed, it gets darker earlier now. I mean, it's just a combination of everything that just just great memories and great times, and it's exciting.
Yeah, and exciting, and you can see the fan base when they're coming in. They're wide eyed.
Yeah.
What do you think? What's going to happen? I heard this kid's good. I heard this and so and we've seen over the years. I mean, telling somebody they're like, "What? You're kidding me?" Michael Penix out Washington.
Yeah.
He played. Was that a regional or
It was.
was it a semifinal?
It was a third round game.
Yeah, third round game, and he came in pretty well. We knew at the time he was going to Indiana, and he didn't end up going there. But he I don't want to bring up bad memories, but he ran like an 80-yard touchdown.
Yeah,
or something against us. Yeah,
we beat him pretty good, but he had 2 unbelievable runs in that game, and both of them were touchdowns where we had him dead to rights, and
yeah, he was gone.
And he was just just big, powerful guy that could throw it. He presented you a lot of problems, and you knew he was going to be good, and you're like looking back at it now, like
and you could see he was polished, and it was almost nothing against Indiana University. Don't get me wrong, but he looked like he could have been the next guy that could have went to an SEC school,
right?
Or something along those lines. Even though it's with the Big Ten, and he lands in Washington and falls into a great circumstance for himself, and he's the Heisman Trophy. I don't know if he's the leader in the house right now, but he's top 3
there.
guy.
Yep.
Yeah, he's definitely there. So those are the kind of players you get a chance to see when these games are coming around. Look at the number 1 recruit in the country was here, Richard Young from we played him all last year. The running back from
from Lehigh, number 1 running back in the country, and then over the years I remember Armwood had the number 1 defensive lineman in the country.
Yep.
So you're going to see some really good football players,
multiple talented players that are going to come through.
Anybody that maybe was at the 4th round game last year against Buchholz, you probably see one of the best high school quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Like as far as just what the things he could do with the ball last year. The kid from Buholtz,
Whittemore, and he's plays a lot at Mississippi State right
Yep.
now as a wide receiver. He's on the field and he's making a difference there. Real quick, Larry, we're going to switch over to the state side of things and talk a little bit about some college football in the state. I sort of wrote down my little note here says FSU stays undefeated. Didn't have a great game against Pitt, but Pitt's a tough team to play. You got to go up there, cold weather. Right. They're gritty. They're always going to be that kind of, they kind of take on the same with the Steelers. They take on the feel of the city itself. Right. And then, so they did a good job. Florida and Miami stumble again. Miami has been very up and down, just like Florida. So they're almost having mirrored seasons in some way. Coaches are sort of on the hot seat a little bit. So that's an interesting thing. And then UCF pulls off a Big 12 win in their inaugural season. But kind of funny, they beat Cincinnati. So who was in their conference before. Yeah. So technically it's a Big 12 win, but it really is sort of like not the one they maybe wanted to have. The Oklahoma one's probably the one they wanted to have.
Yeah, no, you're right about FSU. They're doing what they have to do. Not always pretty, the prettiest wins, but it's a win on the road, and they're just kind of knocking them off one at a time. They're going to have some tough games coming up, rivalry games, and then who they're going to see in the ACC championship if they make it there. So they're consistently just getting it done.
And this year in particular, that seems to be, and I will get to that about the NFL later, but that seems to be the thing. Consistency is winning out in college football right now. There isn't a team that's going out and throwing 60 on everybody and looking like the best team. Back in the day, you had the Nebraskas who just were dominating, and the Miamis and whatnot. Even Florida State had their runs and whatever. Now it's like those teams that come out, don't make a ton of mistakes, put 27 up, 32 up, or whatever it may be. Defense plays well. I mean, Georgia's went over Missouri. Missouri's a very good team. Almost mirrors how Georgia plays a little bit. But Georgia didn't overly impress anybody, but they had a solid game. Everybody had played their part and went to keep on winning.
I think the big thing about Georgia is they play four quarters. Like they could be down a little bit, they could be tied. They could not look their best, and then you look in the fourth quarter and it's like, here they are again. Putting one away because they consistently play. They got their depth. And on defense is unreal, and they got playmakers on offense, and they're not the flashiest offense, but they just consistently, they're there, and
you watch the games and you're like, they're going to win.
Right.
Like, you feel like they could be down at score or tied, and you're like, no, they're going to win. You can just feel
There's
that.
No panic,
no panic.
And then, of course, Florida, a very disappointing loss, trying to get to bowl eligibility, game-winning field goal, 2-minute drive to win it, and fall short there in overtime. And everybody was so high on Miami, start the year.
Absolutely
they beat Texas A&M, and then now they're consistently struggling, to be consistent,
Very, very hard watching, again, when both Florida and Miami play, and I've watched the better part of 2 games with Miami, and it's got the opposite feeling as Georgia or Alabama does.
Right.
It feels like an inevitability that you are going to lose. It seems like what's going to happen next for them to figure out a way to lose. Florida the same way. You feel like, okay, here's what's going. Then you feel like you get right to the edge of it, and then something like, what just happened? And then you feel like, now we're in a game that we probably were a little too close the whole way through. And now we made that one mistake that's going to turn the momentum around, and you're going to go that way. And when you play, in both schools, I mean, they're playing in big-time Power 5 conferences, and you can't make mistakes again no matter who it is. You take the bottom team, in which Arkansas kind of was. I mean, 0-5 in the conference at that point in time, and but they got talent. The quarterback, I mean, he was a pro prospect 2 years ago. I don't know what happened. He just sort of flattened out, or he reached the ceiling or something. But he played 2 years ago for about a quarter and a half. That's all it took.
No, it's funny that you say that, because I hadn't really seen Arkansas very much. I knew that they had a bad record, and then when I turned the game on, I'm like, oh, they got that kid, and they're 0-5. I couldn't believe it. And then they obviously had starting to figure it out a little bit. I guess they had a coordinator change, and it's funny you say that about UCF. All 3 of those teams that went to the Big 12 are all struggling.
Absolutely.
And
It's not the same.
It's not the
Just
same.
not the same.
It's not the same. It's it's a different level, and
It's the week in, week out of it.
that's true.
You just don't.
Yeah.
There's not a week off. And if you think there is, someone's going to come up and get you. Look at how Kansas has gotten better in that conference, and Texas is probably near the top with Oklahoma. And they went to Kansas, and I don't know if they thought less of Kansas or whatever, but Kansas put it on them, and that's how quick it can happen in those conferences. So you got to be consistent. One other thing too, been kind of keeping an eye on USF. Not so much watching the games, but sort of looking. I think where they are right now with a 4-5 record, the improvement that's been made from where they were last year, unbelievable. The coach is doing a fantastic job. Not that you want to say this because it always, USF deserves to have a coach for more than 4 years if he's good or whatever it may be. But if he can make another leap to be above 500 next year, get him in a bowl game. USF's always been the team like UCF. They're in a major city area. Tampa's got a lot of talent. You can start drawing a little fence around the Tampa area and keep some of those really good Tampa players local. You've got a chance to really show something in their conference moving forward.
Yeah, no, I mean, they're scoring a lot of points, and that's, I think they'll get better on defense. I think, with the staff being there for a while, if they all stay together. But they're scoring some points now, and they're really competitive.
Yeah, I agree. I think the next couple of weeks is always good. The big power conferences, the SEC, the Pac-12, the Big 12, you're going to see everything kind of shake out. I think probably the one conference that is going to be it's going to be Michigan and Ohio State. And then whoever wins that game is going to go to the Big 10 championship. The winner of that goes, and then probably Ohio State or Michigan, whoever loses, might sneak back in to where he got. So it's going to come down to the SEC getting one. And Florida State's undefeated. They got to get one. And then it's going to come down to the Big 12 and the Pac-12 to get the other one, depending on how things go. So, but again, all these teams are at the top right now, have been playing very consistently. Washington had one glitch, but they look good. They're sneaking around there. So again, consistency has been the winning. Now it'll see if they can pull it off the last 3 games. With that, we'll take our next break and come back and talk a little bit about the NFL. And what we'll probably do is we'll go right into our What's Bugging Me section after the NFL segment to give ourselves a little chance to vent on some things that have happened here in the last week or so. With that, we'll take a break. Be back here at Douglas Jeep right after
this. Douglas Jeep Chrysler Dodge Ram is excited to announce Black Friday savings all month long during the Black Friday sales event. Get a great deal on the new Ram 1500 Bighorn Crew Cab from only $369 per month. Or drive a new Jeep Renegade Latitude from only $319 per month. Drive a new Jeep Grand Cherokee from only $399 per month. Get Black Friday savings all month long during the Black Friday sales event going on now at Douglas Jeep Chrysler Dodge Ram in Venice. Who has Black Friday savings all month long? Douglas does!
And welcome back to Douglas Jeep and the 941 Sports Zone. And coming up soon, the Truly Nolan What's Bugging Me section after Larry, Shannon, and I talk a little bit about the NFL. And sitting there yesterday, kind of watching the NFL, I've had a little get-together. I was kind of watching it over somebody's shoulder and watching this and watching that. Thought about it. I'm like, there really isn't a dominant NFL team. The Chiefs, everybody wants to call the Chiefs dominant, but they've played very well, but not to the point where you thought, like, man, these guys are like, unstoppable. They got some beatableness to them. Do you see the same thing, or how do you see it?
I do. It's funny you say that because I couldn't catch all the Dolphin game yesterday, and then when I saw the highlights, I realized that Chiefs got one of their touchdowns on a fumble recovery, right. And I'm like, they only scored 14 points on offense. I think Chiefs are playing really good defense, but offensively they've came back to to everybody a little bit. It's
a little inconsistency at wide receiver for
right.
Them. Yeah,
and just not offensive line probably isn't the best, as far as protecting Mahomes and stuff. Right. So, I think if there's anybody who would probably, you would say, is dominant would be the Eagles. But then, they probably should have lost yesterday.
They should have. If he doesn't step out of bounds, talking about Dak Prescott, if he doesn't step out of bounds, the 2-point conversion makes it a totally different game.
Yep.
So now you'll be kicking a field goal late instead of going for it for a touchdown. and then you never know what happens at that point. And so look at in the game last night with the Bills and the Bengals. Bengals came out playing horrible early on. I think Burrow was hurt with a shoulder problem, but the Bills they're supposed to be the top of the line in the AFC, and they're 5-4 right now,
right,
and not looking like they're going to be much better than where they are as it is. So.
Yeah, no, like huge Dolphin fans, in the house, I'm sitting here and like Dolphins lost, but then we're still in a good spot because the Bills
first place.
Yeah. They're 5-4. I mean, so, it's definitely been some weird scenarios as far as like, and then I think now out of nowhere, the Baltimore Ravens.
They might be talking about consistency. They've been upper level performance consistent week in and week out. It's not hinged on Lamar Jackson throwing for 300. He might run for 150.
Yeah, and they had a really bad loss to the I want to say the Steelers a few weeks ago. So they should be sitting here, 9-1, 8-1, or whatever they were at.
Right.
But I think they're 8-2. Is that
yeah,
right?
They got 8-2.
Yeah. So this is the time of year where everybody's getting their bye weeks, trying to get refreshed, and there's a lot of injuries. I mean,
right.
the amount of injuries are just, and it's kind of like patchwork for some teams to get their guys back. So I think, after everybody gets their bye week, that's when it starts to kind of sink in and know where you stand and where you got to get, because, sometimes you look at some of the quarterbacks that happen to play and some of the offensive linemen that are out, and it seems like that it's a revolving door of injuries for people, and it's part of the game, obviously, and it's kind of you never know what you're going to get with injuries, but
right.
It seems like the teams that are stay healthy and have their guys and playing, you obviously when playing football, your best football at the end, and
right.
And that's usually when you start to see the team separate a little bit.
No doubt. And the other question I say, is this what the NFL wants? Do they want to have it where there's? I don't think they want to have sort of tiebreaker-ish division winners getting different. But I think they would like to see a bunch of teams that are sort of all still in the mix, moving into maybe week 14, 15, where there's still a chance. Because again, it just keeps the fan bases.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. The games get exciting. Obviously, the primetime games are getting shuffled. The best matchups. What do they call it? The flex or whatever.
Yeah, the flex.
Yeah. So for them, having all these races in these divisions close is the best scenario they could have.
Yeah. No, and it really does help. It's if you watch NFL now on TV, if you don't have the package, you watch your local stuff, and then you watch the Red Zone. Right. And every week, you whatever you're watching, if it's the Red Zone at 3:00 or 3:30, you're watching different teams all play these super exciting endings to games. That may be sloppy, it may not be their favorite team, but there's something compelling going on every 3:30, 6:30, whatever it may be.
Right.
Nowadays, it seems like the Thursday night game, if there's anything going on, is the one game that really doesn't really pop off the page very much. Not so much the matchups, but the teams are just having a hard time getting prepared for those games. That may be a rethink on that one.
Yeah, no, it's that's tough. To consistently have somebody play on a Thursday night when they don't have the time to prep, and then their guys are. I mean, I'm pretty sure they hardly ever even practice because their guys are, by the time you hit Wednesday, you pretty much got one practice day in, and then got to travel. Somebody's got to travel, so that game usually seems to be the sloppiest and non-competitive, or just it seems like the guys are missing out on superstars who may have a little nicked up. They can't play on Thursday, so now sometimes they have the full complement of the team you wanted to see. And of course, the other part of it is that for us people over the age of 45, it's hard for us sometimes to navigate prime, right? Trying to find this.
Try to find how things go. The other night, I had the weirdest thing. I walked in on a Thursday night. My 80-year-old father, who can't manage the remote on any level, I walked in and the Bucks were on a Thursday night, and it was on TV. And I said, "How did you do this?" He's like, and he had no answer for me. I'm like, "How did you do this?" Well, little did I know that local Fox picked up the game. I had no idea. I'm like, I thought for sure somehow he clicked the buttons that need to do and waited out everything and it came on. I couldn't even believe it, but I was duped because for me, it's sometimes, I mean, I know how to do it, but it's a little bit of it's sometimes
right.
Like, you want to get out of it for a little bit.
It's not the easiest. And then you want to, on a commercial break, go check on something else. Check the college game score. Or,
sports guys like us, when you watch a game, you have to have 3 TVs or the ability to switch from 3 quickly. So that doesn't happen with that. All right. Well, we can go right into what's bugging me. Do you have anything what's bugging you, Larry? I'll give you a chance to get some off your shoulder.
I'll let you go first. I think about it.
So here's what we got. It's not crazy. This is just a little thing, but I'm not a pregame guy. I don't like watching pregame shows. Okay. And it's not because I don't want the information. I'm a fantasy football player, all that kind of stuff. But there's in every pregame show, there's 9-10 people on the set. So it's like, like like last night with the Sunday night game, Maria Taylor with Devin McCourty and Jason Garrett, and then Collinsworth's son with the safety from the Patriots, and Tony Dungy, and then another set's got Matthew Berry doing the fantasy thing, and you got this, and then you got Collinsworth and Tirico. It's everywhere, and I mean it's such nothing. There's no substance to it. It's just a minute, a second. They say we're going to do our picks. There was like the whole USA gets the pick. Carrie Underwood gets the pick.
Yeah, well, when they put them all on the bottom of the screen, right?
Crap! And then they have to go to another page.
Right.
I'm like, oh my God! And that's just picking on them. But Fox has got
it's the same way
guys.
everywhere.
They all got different guys, and I know you're filling airtime or whatever it may be, but from the days gone by, I think ESPN doing the college game day scenario, they have 3 hours to put that many people on there, not 45 minutes like on a Sunday night.
And it's different, the college pregame is different. But you're
Different
right
atmosphere.
about I can't watch the NFL pregame.
No.
I literally can't do it.
They're just each guy is making up something to say, or like they say, looking for a click to say something that's sort of going to make a splash, and it's just hard to watch. And so now I do something else, or I go out to the store or whatever, and I'm back at 12:55 on Sunday afternoon.
I'll purposely not turn the TV on until 1:00.
Right.
Or if it's on, I'm watching something totally not football, because I can't.
Right.
I don't want to hear them talk. It's annoying.
It's overload.
It's overload, and it's a competitive, everybody's competing. Fox is competing with CBS, and then ESPN's on at the same time, and you got NFL Network on also, and then like you say, all eyes are supposed to be on NBC at night, but I don't want to hear it.
No, you go to the next game, you put it on, you're like, I can't watch these 9 people talk anymore. Yeah. Anything for you?
Well, I've been racking my brain. I know there's a lot bugging me, but I seem to not be able to come up with something that's productive. I just think that bugging me would be that East Carolina is very bad at football.
Well, that's legit though. I mean, because you're watching your team, and I was surprised how poorly they're playing.
Yeah, you got a guy that's been there for his 5th year. On year 5, and then you lose a quarterback and a running back to they're in the league, or they got signed, or they're very, very good players, very good college players. They weren't draft picks, but they were in training camps, and and your team just falls apart. And they're playing really good on defense, but man, they're struggling. And
there was a point where I thought East Carolina in particular, they kind of had that roller coaster, good year, bad year, good year, bad year, and I thought they were sort of coming out of that.
Yeah.
Where they looked like they were going to start playing consistently.
Yeah, back-to-back bowl games, big win last year in the bowl game. With the transfer portal and with, just being, having a staff together for that long, you would think that you wouldn't miss a beat. Like you'd just be able to have somebody ready, and as far as the quarterback position, but that's tough. You want to root for your teams, and
again, sometimes you your expectations, with anything. Like I said, I'm a Florida fan. I'm a Jets fan. Let's go there. I'm a Jets fan, and you're always sort of like waiting for the time for it to kind of come out, get consistent, whatever it may be, and then all of a sudden it just falls flat. and you're like, how'd this happen? What was the situation? And you want to be mad. You want to be like, blame it on somebody, the coach, whatever. I always look at it and say, sometimes maybe it was coming. You could have seen it, but because you were so excited about what was happening, you just kind of lost track of it. I do a lot of times. I was like, what was I missing from last year that I didn't see? And sometimes it is like, hey, the O-line wasn't really that good. We had a really good running back who made the O-line look better.
Right.
And maybe that's the situation.
Yeah.
So you're always trying to figure that stuff out. That's a fan.
Yeah, no doubt. And then my second favorite team is Florida, growing up near Gainesville.
Yeah.
And then, you know, my dad's a huge Gator fan, and my son goes to Florida now.
Yep.
So it's like they're struggling. Not struggling, but yeah, I guess you call it struggling. So the only hope I have now is the Dolphins. And got to make sure that we get some exciting football in the Shannon house.
I will tell you this. I mean, I wasn't 100% sold on the Dolphins even after the 70-20 win, but I'm more impressed with them the last couple of games because they're proving themselves to be a tougher team than maybe they were projected to
Right.
be. Sometimes you look at it and say it was flash, it's Tyreek Hill or whatever. I think they're much more. I think that right now, I would be surprised if they didn't win the division.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that they're a team that has the injuries. You know, a lot of guys out, waiting for some guys to get back, and O-line and D-line type players they're waiting for. And but they've shown where it's more than just a flash.
Right.
They're playing good defense, and they. It's hard to keep them out of the end zone, most of the time, and so they can score points at any time, and so that's when you have an offense like that, you have a chance.
Right, no doubt. Real quick, one thing too before we go, kudos to Rich Spedalari. He picked the Texas Rangers to win the World Series. That kind of came and went in a flash. You'd probably missed that if you weren't watching too hard. But the Rangers won the first World Series in 65 years of the franchise. I also picked the Rangers way back in the beginning of it all after they beat the Rays. So I won't pat myself on the back. I'll give Rich the kudos on that one for that in particular. And for his prediction for me for this week, watch that Florida State-Miami game. I think Florida State will win, but my prediction is it'll be a one-score game. It won't be a blowout. I think Miami will give everything they've got in this one to try to make their season up.
Yeah.
And Florida State's got two games. I'm not saying Florida, but at Florida is going to be difficult, and Miami in the next couple weeks. So Florida State's got to watch that. They got to play hard as they can the next couple weeks because those rivalry games that they got coming up are going to be two difficult ones. So watch this week, see if Miami plays how Miami plays tough against Florida State. And with that, we are done for tonight, Larry. You made it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, man, thanks
fun.
for having me here. And again, Larry, like I said, all that you do, and I really didn't mention too much about it, but obviously as the assistant athletic director, moving into being the athletic director, obviously when things come up, fundraising, whatever you're going to do, obviously we want you back here to get all that stuff
Absolutely.
done. So we'll take advantage of the platform. We can get you some coverage. Yep. Larry Shannon, everybody, thank him for being here. And thank you guys for watching the 941 Sports Zone. Thank you to Douglas Jeep once again and Truly Nolan for the What's Bugging Me section. We'll see you here next week from Douglas Jeep on the 941 Sports Zone.